Well, hello kids, YouTubers, everybody that's got to do a little work today on a vehicle. Hey, good luck. Today, my project is going to be putting an oil pan on this 3.0 motor on this Caravan. A lot of these 3.0 motors have this issue. Here is my brand new oil pan. It just came today, and I'm going to be putting it on here in the near future. And this one's pretty cool. It's got a plug on the side, which is pretty nice, and it's got a main drain plug. So, not sure what the plug on the side's all about, but I guess it's one way you can check your oil if you have to. But it's also got this little bevel there so the oil doesn't slosh around, and the oil pump, the screen doesn't suck up a bunch of air, so it kind of helps the oil stay in the bottom of the pan when you're going around curves. Right now I haven't done anything. I've just got the oil pan today, and I've got it up on ramps, and got my little carpet laying there. And we'll try to do this afternoon, and we'll try to get it off of here and get it put back on. The oil pan itself, there it is. It's there's first I'll tell you about the oil pan. Look at the rust and holes. I mean, this thing is just full of holes. It's been a while since I've seen one this bad, and it's leaking pretty bad. So you know, it's time to replace it. Also, the Grand Cherokees, the 99s, the 4.7s, they have the same issue. These oil pans are just notorious for leaking. So hopefully, if you're going to do a 3.0 Caravan or any 3.0 engine that has this junky oil pan on it, this will kind of help you guys out. So it's pretty straightforward to take this off. I'm going to drain the oil out of it. The last thing I do, I want to go ahead and get all the bolts loose, but get a bunch of bolts all the way around the top up there. These are little 8mm bolts, and there's a bracket on the back you got to take off. You've got a big 18mm bolt there, and there's two up on the top, and those are easy to get to. You just got to put your hand up behind here over the axle, get you an extension, and get that bracket off. And once you get that bracket off, then you got to go on this side in a nutshell. You got to take the starter off, and there's a couple of brackets here that you have to take off, because where that oil pan is there, I don't know if you can see that, there's one of the bolts. The other two are hidden behind this bracket. So there's no choice. You have to take this bracket off to get it off. One other quick thing is to make sure you make a mental note of how these nuts go on here in this stud on this bracket. It's kind of an interesting setup there. Just don't kind of mess that up. It'll be easier to put back together. And the starter is pretty straightforward. It looks like, if I spin around, it's got a couple of bolts on this side there of the starter. There's one there, and one up on top. I should be able to get to. I'm going to try to keep from. I'm going to do my best and try not to have to take this motor mount off. I don't think I have to. The ones I did in the past, I know I had to work around it, but I'm going to try not to take this motor mount off. But other than that, you get this stuff off, this oil pan will come straight down. I'm going to try to do it today before I get lots of daylight out here. It gets dark about 5 o'clock, and it's about 2 now. So I want to be pushing it. So let me go ahead and start by taking this back bracket off, and we'll see what we get into. I'm hoping my gasket's still okay. I've got some gasket maker stuff in there. I called around, but nobody has a gasket today. But I think this has a factory gasket on it. I'm not sure. But I'll look at that once I get this oil pan off. But just so you know, if you're going to replace your oil pan, if you're going to buy an oil pan, make sure you go ahead and buy a new gasket just for backup, because you can get them for like $8 to $10. They're pretty cheap. And like I said, nobody in my area has one in stock today, which kind of is a bummer. But we'll go ahead and pull this off and get this, hopefully, new oil pan on here before it gets late today. Alright, now that bracket that goes back here I was just talking about a few minutes ago, I got it out, and I just use an extension, and you'll need a 19mm deep well and a 18 socket. The 18 bolt is right here, and the two on the top of that bracket is basically, see, they're 19s. There they are. They are 19 nuts. Of course, this is what I'm taking off. I don't think anyone's changed it. And there's the 18 bolt that I took off. Now that bracket is out of the way, and the back side of this oil pan, as you can see now, is easy and free to get to. Oh, and one other note, you see my antifreeze leaking there? I've got a soft plug somewhere that's rusted through, I do believe. I don't think it's the coolant tube that runs under that intake. I really think it's a soft plug, because I've got a soft plug on the back side here. I don't know if you can see this or not. If I shine the light at an angle, right about, say there's that soft plug, and you see that yellow stuff on the bottom? I saw a little antifreeze kind of dripping from that, but my major leak I do believe is in behind that flywheel, which is going to really suck because I'm going to have to pull the transmission to fix it. But this engine runs amazing. I mean, it runs perfect, and it sucks that I've got that leak. And you can see right there, a lot of these Caravans suffer from this issue. So that's probably a video I will be making a little bit later, so you might want to check in about that. All right, now I've unhooked the battery up on top. Make sure, yep, it's unhooked. Make sure you unhook your battery. Now the next step you want to do is go ahead and get your starter out of the way on the other side. Right here, you got 3 bolts. Pretty easy to get to, and I do believe those are probably 15. So we'll pop those out, and we'll slide the starter out of the way, and I'll probably go ahead and unhook, or try, at least attempt to unhook these 2 wires on the starter. But sometimes this main bolt here gets a little bit of an issue, so I may try to break it loose first, then go ahead and pull the starter. I got the starter loose. I want to show you 2 things that's kind of important. You see this nut right there that has the hot wire going to it. If yours is rusted like that, good luck trying to get that nut off, because you're either going to twist it or you're going to break this whole connector off. There's really no way around it. So what I'm going to do is just leave it on there, and I'm going to pull the starter off by itself. And hopefully I'll have enough wiring harness here to let it just kind of hang down. It'll be kind of annoying, but at least I won't have to break this off right there. There's probably a way to get that off. You just have to break it off and replace the solenoid on the back of the starter. But since this starter's in good shape, I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, now the other second thing is, here are the 3 bolts that I took off. They are 15 millimeter bolts. I used a little socket there on it. On this side, when you take those 3 bolts off, it's a little tight in there. So what I do, as those bolts start to loosen, I'll start with the top one, and once you get the bolts pretty loose, it'll start to hit the back of this transmission. Loosen all 3 of them at the same time and let the starter do the work. Let the starter slowly get pushed out, because it takes up the slack, and you can keep your room here to loosen all these bolts. And when you get them really loose, you can just take them out with your fingers. And that's basically what I did, because it's a little tight in there, but they do come out. And now the starter, I'll just kind of let it hang down right here. And you gotta, let me spin around here one more time. And you got a little wire that's going to your oil sensor right there. Be very careful. Just maybe unhook that. Hold the starter up with one hand and kind of unhook that. Then your starter should hang down okay here, and you can probably work around it. And really all I got to do now is get a couple of these brackets and bolts off here, then we can take this oil pan off. So hopefully I've explained that to you fairly reasonably, accurately, and with common sense, because I'm running against daylight here. I have about 3 hours of daylight, and I want to get this done before dark. So apologize if I say the wrong thing, but I'll try to make it as clear and understandable as I can. So now let me go ahead and unhook that wire on the oil switch, and we'll start working on a couple of these brackets. All right, now I got my starter just kind of hanging there, and got a couple bungee cords around it, and that worked out pretty good. And there is the wiring harness off of that oil sending unit. Make sure you unplug it. There's usually a little red clip there you got to pull out first. It's a security clip before you can slide that off, and mine was missing. But it came off pretty easy. Now, here is the secret to this. At this point, you would think, well, you still got to take all these brackets off. Well, there's a little shortcut here. What you got to do is take these 2 bolts out on the top there. Those are sitting right there, and they are 15 millimeter, I believe these are 18 millimeter bolts. And loosen this nut up right there. You don't have to take it off. Now that is also a 18 bolt nut, I should say. I'm looking for my socket here to verify everything as I continue talking. Sorry about that. Yeah, see, that's an 18. Now, once you loosen this up just a little bit, behind there, there's a stud. You see that right there? I'll shine my light in there. Get a 13/16 wrench. Hold the camera there. And let's see, where's my 13/16 inch wrench? If I can find it here. I apologize for the unorganization here. I just had it in my hand. And I laid it somewhere, so hang on a second, I gotta go find it. Okay, I found it. Alright, take the 13/16 inch wrench and stick it right there on that stud. And just loosen that nut up a little bit, the whole stud. And what happens when you do that, this bracket just falls out of the way, and you can take this oil pan, drop it right off. How about that? So it looks like I'll have this done here pretty soon, and all I gotta do is drain. Well, I need to drain the oil out of it real quick. And we'll go ahead and pull all these bolts. Well, you know what? I am a little ahead of myself here. I've still got to take this back shield off on the back. So let's see. Let me figure this out real quick. Alright, just a little slight change of plans. I just basically took out the other bolt on the top of the bracket here to kind of loosen it up a little bit. If you want, you can still take out this long bolt that holds in the motor mount here, but I don't think you have to. What I did, I got a pry bar and got behind here like this and kind of pried this bracket back enough to get this bolt out right there and this bracket. And now I can pretty much take off this dust cover. That's what I'd forgotten about. You got to take this dust cover off. I've got all the bolts out of it now, and it should come right out. And this was kind of holding the top of that oil pan in the top right there, because you can see how it's kind of beveled in there. This kind of rests on the bottom of it, so you have to take this out. Yeah, and it definitely got some antifreeze leak in there, so I'll have to find out later what's going on with that. So now I am ready to drop this oil pan out, and I should have this done here in another hour or so. And just like I said, the hard part really is just kind of working around this bracket, getting it out of the way, and getting the bolts out so you can get past the oil pan when you drop it down. So now I'm going to go ahead and set the camera down. We're going to take all these bolts out. Well, I got to drain the oil out. We'll take all these bolts out, and we'll look at this oil pan, and we'll put the new gasket on the new one. Matter of fact, I actually did get a gasket today. Somebody had one in stock. I went and got it. And I'll have this done here shortly. Alright, this is take 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Alright, I got all my bolts out of the oil pan, and I decided to just take the oil pan off together. I'm not even going to bother draining the oil out because there's not that much in it. And I think I told you these bolts were 8mm. They're actually 10. Sorry about that. So now we'll go ahead and take this off. I got a big pry bar here. I'm going to kind of pry it between the pan and the block and try to get it to come loose a little bit. I'm not too worried about bending it at this point because, like I said, I got the new one to put in it. And there's so much silicone on this. I don't know if... Here it comes. Oh! Better use both hands because it's a little heavy. And out it comes. Nice. Alright, we'll set this off to the side here for a second. We'll let some of that oil drain out of the screen. Check your screen, make sure there's nothing there plugged up. And there's the bottom of the engine. So let me pull this out and we'll look at it as the camera rolls. And let's see, I've got a pan here I'll stick under here and replace this with that. So we'll pull this out. Wasn't too bad to take off. I just get impatient. I guess it's something with old age. I don't know. So there's the old oil pan. And here's the new one. Make sure you match them up. Make sure they're identical. And everything looks good. Check all your bolt holes. The pattern all the way around. This one here, see, it's a good thing I went and bought a brand new gasket because someone just put silicone on here. That's not the way you do it. But at least I got a new gasket for it. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I actually just put the gasket on it, and I'm not even going to use any silicone because I don't think you really need two of these gaskets, these newer ones. Go ahead and put this on and button her back up, so I'm pretty excited about that. Let me give you a look under here real quick. Some of you guys have not taken one of these off. Just give you a little look underneath the engine, what it looks like. There. It's pretty clean, not bad at all. Like I said, the motor runs great. Doesn't smoke, knock. These 3.0s are notorious for smoking, but this one doesn't. It's got 168,000 on it. It's well worth keeping and fixing it up. And there you can see where my antifreeze has been leaking. It's really depressing because if it wasn't for that, this engine would be almost perfect. But hey, I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. So now I'm going to go ahead and prepare and put the gasket on it, and I'll start it on there, and when I get about halfway together, we'll come back and look at it. Hopefully somebody will watch this and it'll help somebody out. Almost forgot to tell you, also before I put the oil pan back on, the new one, I'm going to clean up that blocker a little bit, kind of scrape some of that red stuff off, and put the new gasket on and finish it up. Very important, make sure you get this nice and clean so your gasket doesn't leak. Alright, I got my new gasket kind of sitting on there. By the way, this new gasket that I got, that's the Felpro brand, they give you these little plastic screw sticks that you screw in the bottom of your block to help guide this gasket on straight so you can start your bolts, which is pretty cool. So I got the block all cleaned up, at least as good as I could get it. And I shouldn't have any issue now with the gasket sticking on there. I used a razor blade and cleaned most of that off, so it's pretty good there. And now all we got to do is go ahead and pop this on. So I'll go ahead and start a couple of these on there, and we'll start the oil pan. And always, these bolts, always start them with your fingers. Never use a tool because you can cross thread them. Very important. Then you can use your little ratchet and kind of tighten them down. So go ahead and stick these in. All right, I got the oil pan started, but a quick note, I didn't even use these guys. I just used my fingers and started them with my little ratchet, and I'll show you what I've got now under here. Now, when you first start these bolts on there, I always do one side. You start them on with your fingers and your ratchet, then go on the other side and start a couple. They are kind of difficult to get started because that new gasket that I bought is very thick. So you have to really push up on that oil pan to get those little bolts started there. So just take a little time, and you'll have to have a little patience. But once you get a couple on each side started, then the rest will go. And you can see I've got one actually right there started, and I got a couple. I got one down there, and same thing on this side. I got one on this side started. And now all I gotta do is go ahead, put all the bolts back in it, and start putting this back together. So what I'm gonna do, I'll go ahead and put all this back together, and we'll start it up here in a little bit and wrap this video up and give you a few extra tips and anything I can think of. All right, kids, it's all done just in time too, because the sun is setting in the western horizon. Hey, a month from now, the days will start getting longer again, and right after Christmas, so it'll be nice. Well, the daylight hours anyway. It's working great. It's running. There's a look at it underneath. I don't have any leaks. Looks really good. And the only thing I didn't do, I'm not going to put my dust cover on or that little tiny bracket because I've got a water leak, an antifreeze leak. I'm going to try and trace it down. And there's what's left of the old oil pan. Let me shut the car off real quick. We'll wrap this up. I don't have any lights or anything on. That's just my emergency brake light on. I got the emergency brake on. And here's the bracket. I'm gonna leave the bracket off. It's no big deal for now. And this shield. You can see the antifreeze there. So I need to figure out where that leak is gonna, where that water is coming from. And my gut feeling tells me it's probably either that tube that runs under that intake over to the water pump that seals bad, or I've got a soft plug. So I don't know, we'll research it later. But anyway, it's done, And there's a look at the old oil pan, so I'm happy about that. And I got new oil in the vehicle. And the only other advice I can give you is, you have no choice. You have to pull the starter off and work around these brackets. If you elect to take the brackets all off and everything, it's not going to take any longer to do that versus trying to work around it. So just do what's best for you. And like I said, when you start that oil pan on those bolts, it takes a little while to get them started. Start them with your ratchet and your fingers, and eventually push up on it, because that new gasket, like I said, I got some very thick, and those bolts aren't very long, so it takes a little while to get those bolts started into the bottom of the block. And I'm happy. Looks really good. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you have a 3.0 it's leaking, there you go. That might actually help you out. And this whole job took me about 2.5 hours. I was a little slow today. If you count going and getting the gasket, it was about a 3-hour job. So there you go. Thanks for watching, everybody, and be careful and good luck. And hey, subscribe to my channel. What the hell? That's the first time I've ever said that. First time ever. All right, later, guys.